China probably wants the world to stop talking about an incident on August 11th when a Chinese destroyer and a Chinese Coast Guard vessel collided east of Scarborough Shoal within Manila's exclusive economic zone. It happened while they were in high-speed pursuit of a smaller, more nimble Philippine Coast Guard ship. Watch. What we must keep talking about is that the damage on the Chinese Coast Guard vessel, which has a steel hull inflicted by the Chinese warship, had been directed at the more fragile Philippine vessel. If the Philippine vessel hadn't escaped, it would have been decimated and maybe sunk. So while its ships failed to dodge each other, Beijing should count itself lucky it dodged an international incident, which may have come close to triggering the Philippines' Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States. China, of course, made no mention of the crash in its statement defending its actions. Has China's recklessness gone too far? After this incident, will Beijing continue to escalate in the South China or West Philippine Sea, East China Sea, Taiwan Strait and Tasman Sea, or will it take this lucky scrape as an early warning? Whatever it decides, China has set in motion a pattern for regional powers to work together to jointly defend their sovereign rights and territory. In this show, we'll also discuss Asia's first F-35B fighter jets arriving in Japan, restoring carrier operations for the first time since World War II, and Australia's shift to a regional maritime power thanks to Japan's first major defense export deal. Joining us today are Tony Hu, former U.S. Department of Defense Senior Director for China, Taiwan and Mongolia, and Lai Yizhong, Prospect Foundation President. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today.
Thank you.
Here you can see a Philippine Coast Guard vessel jammed between a Chinese Coast Guard vessel and a Chinese destroyer, and just how tightly it's being squeezed or pincered before the collision takes place. They and some 20 other Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia that morning, counted by marine expert Ray Powell, were trying to stop a Philippine Coast Guard activity supplying food and buying catch off their fishermen. So, Tony, lead us off with why this incident is such a big deal.
Well, I think this accident demonstrates the big problem that China is having. The Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army, has expanded so fast that although they have a lot of new and big toys, they don't have an experienced operator of those toys. This ship captain, especially the one that's in the destroyer has committed a very fundamental mistake as a ship captain. I was surprised that that destroyer continued to pursue the Filipino ship an hour after that accident instead of stopping to rescue his partner in the Coast Guard. And this is unusual. During wartime, of course, you continue fighting, but during peacetime.
So perhaps they haven't had the right training. That's what you're saying.
Precisely, the right training or right rules or regulations that talk about this. During peacetime, when these accidents happen, you help your partner. And so the other thing is the action of this destroyer, which is 7,500 tons, against something that's 20 times smaller. I think they were very fortunate that that destroyer didn't hit the Filipino ship.
All right. President Lai, were you surprised that that was actually a Navy ship, a destroyer, that was in this? Or did you see this as an escalation?
I think that it seems that the Chinese tactic is to have the Coast Guard ship to pursue against the Philippine Coast Guard ship and also try to walk the cannonade. At the same time, the Chinese Navy ship basically just trying to stop the Filipino Coast Guard ship from going further. Just try to blockade or contain it. But then I think it's a very smart seamanship by the Filipino Coast Guard ship. They evade the incoming Chinese destroyers. And then the Chinese Coast Guard ship just continues to pursue and then just hit its own Navy ship and cause damage of its own.
Yeah, and Tony, you were talking about perhaps the lack of skills and training or rules, but also you talked about, it switched to a humanitarian incident. And Jay Tariella, the Coast Guard spokesman, said that after the collision, they actually offered this man overboard recovery and medical aid to the Chinese Coast Guard, but there was no response. How would you compare, the behavior shown in this incident? You've got the great power China, and then you've got a much smaller country, middle power Philippines.
It demonstrates a major difference in thinking. the normal democratic countries, human lives come first. Chinese military think differently, and this is dangerous, and this is almost inhuman. There were 3 Chinese Coast Guard personnel at the bow of the Chinese Coast Guard ship placing collision cushions because they saw the collision coming. So they're trying to reduce the impact. And at the moment of impact, what happened to those 3 people, we don't know. But based on the 3 to 5 seconds timing, they wouldn't have opportunity to escape because we're not at war. This is peacetime. Therefore, the normal thing is human life come first.
But maybe that is the key to them. They are at war, Tony.
That is true. Maybe China is already considered themselves to be in a state of war, only they haven't publicly announced it.
President Lai, so we've spoken about the Mutual Defense Treaty. If it had been the Philippine vessel that had been injured, and over the past few years, the Philippines, US, Australia have consistently warned China when they've been involved in these near misses, either in the air or in the sea, about the dangers. How do you think Beijing will be assessing this incident? Do you think they'll be getting that feedback that this indeed is too risky?
But I think that whether to enact this mutual defense treaty, I think the U.S. attitude, Trump administration especially, is crucial. Because right now we already see a near collisions or near damage about the Philippine Coast Guard ship, although this time it's Chinese ship that got injured. But this incident could very much spread all the way to the Philippines, its own military as well as its own government officials. So that's the U.S. attitude right now, whether they make a statement about it or not. I think that signify a very important signal to China, whether the United States is thinking about this very seriously, or basically the U.S. would take it as this is the bilateral manner between Philippines and China. So I would say that for anything China try to assess, Trump administration, in my view, they need to make a statement about this.
Yeah. So the ball is in the US court at the moment on this incident. Okay, many observers believe this incident was a direct result of China's overreaction toward Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos's comments on Taiwan while on a state visit to Delhi. Beijing complained that Marcos was, quote, playing with fire. This is what he actually said when asked by India's First Post media whether he would open Philippine bases up to the Americans in a war over Taiwan. Watch.
To be very practical about it, if there is a confrontation over Taiwan between China and the United States, there is no way that the Philippines can stay out of it, simply because of our physical geographic location. And so if you think about it, if there is an all-out war, then we will be drawn into it. And I assure you with the greatest hesitation, but we will have to defend our territory and our sovereignty. Furthermore, there are many, many Filipino nationals in Taiwan, and that would be immediately a humanitarian problem, because we will have to get involved, because we will have to go in there or find a way to go in there and to bring our people home.
Now, Marcos has responded to Beijing's allegations with this.
I was just stating facts. We do not want to go to war. But I think if there is a war over Taiwan, we will be drawn. Hihilain tayo sa aya't gusto natin. Kicking and screaming. We will be drawn and dragged into that mess.
Now, Tony, Taiwan Talks didn't initially report this part of the interview because it is actually their stated position. It's been publicly communicated by Defense Secretary Todoro, and it's based on the facts of geographical proximity, as Marcos said, as well as the rescue of their citizens from Taiwan. So when it comes to, quote, playing with fire, do you see any irony in this?
It is funny, we just talked about ship incident where truly China is playing with fire. But it is funny that truly, Marcos's statement should not be a surprise to anybody, okay? He just stating the facts, and because if we look at the recent multilateral exercises and activities in northern Luzon, around the Philippines, it has one purpose: to deter China. So if China thinks this is something new, I don't think that that's stupid. So I think...
You agree with Marcos, who said that they misinterpreted for propaganda reasons?
Absolutely, absolutely. The fact that Marcos no longer accepts China's bullying like his predecessor, Duterte. Duterte tried to appease China and listen to China, but only resulted in China taking further pressure on the Philippines and denying the use of their own EEZ. So Marcos learned from that. He's no longer accepting that bullying from China. And what he said, like I said, should be no surprise to anybody.
President Lai, you know, nobody wants this crisis. The Philippines doesn't want a Taiwan crisis. Taiwan doesn't want it either. The only side that would want it, if it were to happen, would be China. The only side that could start it is China. Again, if you can help us unpack this strange twist of narrative.
Well, Chinese has this history of the torturing and the twisting all the narratives in the past. For example, during the 90s, especially in the late 90s, there were the discussion about the missile defense system in Japan, in Korea. And then China started to attack Japan and Korea by saying that you have a missile defense system, you are harming Chinese capability to hit you, so that's dangerous, and that's a security dilemma, and you're escalating the tensions. And then China also accused Taiwan for making our defense stronger, because that will make it harder for them to attack Taiwan. So that's Taiwan's boosting our defense, and our when we try to buy some bulletproof vest, that's provocations, and because that'll make it hard for China to really harm us. That's all the Chinese tactic. They always wanted to twist the whole things in the favor that the provocateur is actually being the victim. Why is that so? So I would say that we should never fall into this rhetorical trap.
Okay. Now, in today's show, we'll also discuss how Japan and Australia are stepping up to increase deterrence against China. Only 4 countries in the world are currently operating Lockheed Martin's F-35B Lightning II, considered one of the most lethal fighter jets in the world. The US, UK, Italy, and now Japan, which has received delivery of its first 3 of an eventual 42. The F-35B differs from the F-35A in its short vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, meaning it doesn't require a full runway to get airborne. Because of this, Japan's F-35B jets can be operated from specially modified helicopter carriers, the Izumo and the Kaga, which have been training with US and UK operated F-35Bs. President Lai, come to you. So why is this particular story a big deal for Japan?
I think first of all, if you look at F-35, probably Japan right now is the country other than the United States has the most F-35 jets. And F-35, there are various purposes, whether that's for short takeoff or operate more as a traditional aircraft like F-35A. Basically, it's a stealth and very capable, so that it can match against the Chinese J-16 and even like a J-20s. So that I will say that the capability of F-35 for Japan and also for Australia will compose a very important deterrent forces against China, whether that's from the air or from the sea. And especially if you look at the United States, Japan, and Australia, those are the 3 countries that possess the most F-35 jet in the whole world. U.S. has about like 500, and Japan has about 142, and Australia also have about 70. We have a very potential and potent the F-35 fleets in this region, and we are not including the Koreas, Singapore's, and probably some other countries.
President Lai mentioned Japan will be the largest operator outside the US. You know, why now? And why bring back, for the first time since World War II, carrier operations to Japan? Right now, they are training with the British carrier, right? Lots of UK-operated F-35Bs. Why now?
I think right now, because Japan recognizes its national security can no longer depend on just self-defense. They have to rely on collective defense and also power projection. They cannot sit home and waiting for the enemies to come anymore. You know, these F-35s are replacing the F-15 air superior fighter. F-15, basically Japanese air self-defense force was going to use it. If you intrude into my airspace, I'm going to shoot it down. F-35, on the other hand, is a penetrating weapon system. It's stealthy, it can hit home in your enemy. It has a very strong counterstrike because the enemy has few defenses, like the Israelis hitting Syrian capital, hitting Iranian lands. They can get into your enemy's home.
Let's show the map, Tony.
Right.
We've actually got a map to show. And what this map shows is the distance between Nyotabaru in Japan's southern prefecture of Miyazaki. This is where the planes will go.
Right. So,
and the distance to Taiwan and as well as to China.
Precisely. The distance is about 800 kilometers, and that's well within the unrefueled combat range of the F-35. And if they deploy on the carrier or getting air refueling from Japanese air-to-air refueler or the U.S. Air Force refueler, then that range will be extended so much more. So almost the entire Chinese coast, and all the ships in the East Sea or in the entire region will come under threat. So
and you mentioned that it will probably take an hour to get from Japan to China, but that they would only find out within minutes of them actually getting there.
Right, because of the difficulty in detection of such aircraft. So the aircraft, if it flies in a normal cruise speed, when it gets to China, get into combat speed, so it will hit Chinese coast if they are on the carrier, it'd be even shorter than an hour, maybe half an hour. But the fact that the detection range of F-35, depending on the radar, but usually it basically gives the defender a minute or two to say, hey, what is this over here? It looks like a bird or something. So the reaction time is very short. But that time, the fact is, most likely the missile will hit them before they even see the airplane. The air-to-ground missiles would have already got in and done its damages.
Yeah, so President Lai, what does that mean for Taiwan in any possible crisis?
Well, I would say that the F-35, because of the stealth, so that if it is the Taiwan Strait scenario, probably the first will be that how they are going to intercept the missiles and assets already hit Taiwan. So establish the fact that they are in combat and assets, so that they will be composed as a threat also to other countries, and then they will be able to engage against them. And should things happen in the sense that the war on the Taiwan develop into the certain stages that the alliance between the U.S., Japan, and probably Australia, they need to hit home about the Chinese asset stationed there. The stealth capability will be very important in order to intrude the enemy lines, not only to destroy the enemy air defense system, but also to take out the asset that about to hit Taiwan. Just look at how Israel was using the F-35 to do the damage on Iran, how they blinded the whole Iran's air defense system and got the enemy before they even realized it. So I think that the F-35 itself is a very potent forces. Of course, to my view, I think that Taiwan, hopefully someday we could also have F-35. But right now, I think we should first get ourselves fully capable on the F-16.
Okay, and Tony, we can't ignore that there have been some issues with the F-35B. Just on Sunday, August 10th, one had to land in Japan. This comes a month after also a British F-35B landed in India, was grounded for 39 days. What's behind all this? Actually,
if you look at the statistics, F-35B's failure rate is not greater than any other modern fighters. It just caught more attention. The problem with any modern fighter, when you deploy, when you're at home, these fighters, these aircraft, any kind of aircraft, modern aircraft, usually require very sophisticated repair capability and tools, both in hardware and software. It's not like in the old days when you have a aircraft, a propeller aircraft, you can go down to the road in some machine shop, make a part, put it back on, you can fly. No, you can't do that. So especially with this type of jets. So when they break down far away from home in an unintended deployment location, when we deploy to a new location, we deploy this repair capability with it. But on a carrier, that capability is on the carrier. If you have to divert to someplace else because you don't have enough range to get home, then you have to deploy capability to repair that. I don't know if people recall, about 10 years ago, two U.S. Navy F-16s landed in Tainan. Yeah, one aircraft suffered mechanical failure. So United States have a policy during peacetime when we divert, we don't allow that one person to divert for safety. So we have 2 aircraft. So we ended up sending C-130 with the parts and with people to come repair it. It's standard. So it's not really any more failure rate per se, it just got more attention.
Okay. Now in 2016, Japan was the front runner in a bid to supply Australia with its Scarborough-class diesel submarines. If successful, it would have been Asia-Pacific's biggest defense export deal and Japan's first. But to Japan's disappointment, the contract eventually went to France. But in 2021, Australia, the UK and US formed the AUKUS trilateral security partnership. The French contract was dropped in favour of nuclear-propelled submarines from the US. Recently, some Australian analysts said if Japan had won the contract, Canberra would already have their submarines. Now, nearly a decade later, Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries has won its first major defence export contract to supply Australia, with 11 Mogami frigates beating out stiff competition from Germany's defence giant ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems. President Lai, let me ask you, so Japan's hopes were dashed quite hard in 2016. So what does this mean now, a decade later? Again, one of the biggest deals in this region, but also in light of the 80th anniversary of World War II.
Well, basically, I think that Japan will see that, well, what comes around goes around, so that you did not, we were disappointed about like 10 years ago, and now that it's been redeemed about our capabilities. So I think that basically for the Japan got rewarded by contract, the first thing probably come to their mind will be like this. But also that means that the Japan's weaponry export is now considered to be one of the toppest. So that Australia, and because in Australia's press release also said that it's a very rigorous and competitive phase of the competition against those different contractors, and Japan got the final the reward.
President Lai, do you see this as a step towards normalization for Japan, you know, to become a normal country, become a country that can be a full partner in terms of security in the region?
Well, I always first consider this to be a weapon export rather than a full-fledged partners with others, because there's still the constitution that needs to be dealt with in Japan. But that basically put Japan's one of the taboo in the past, that the weaponry export, that Japan never export the weapon. But now not only they can, but also they become the top one, and that people can consider to buy them. And I hope that someday later, probably that Taiwan could also purchase something from Japan. But of course, that will be something down the line, and hopefully it will realize soon.
Tony, why did it make sense for the contract to go to the Japanese bid? President already said it was very competitive. You know, what are those technical details? Yeah,
actually, it makes sense because Mogami-class is a very versatile and capable ship, a frigate. What's a frigate's role? In addition to attacking other ships, it also has an anti-air role and also anti-submarine role. So that's the role of frigate. Frigate is small, fast, protects a fleet of battle group. So, and what made this Mogami-class great is because it not only does those 3 things, surface, air, and submarine, it's also anti-mine. It's an anti-mine ship. And the current Australian ships, they are about 1 generation behind the PLA Navy's current ships. So this will bring the Australian ships to the level that's a little bit above the Chinese ship. This ship uses what we call AESA, active electronic scanning array. It doesn't have a rotating radar. It has a radar that shoots out electronic waves that look at 360 degrees at the same time, versus when you have rotating array, then you only see the portion where the antenna is pointed. So this ship is very capable. It has vertical launchers that you don't have to point your missile launcher at anything, because it can go up and go 360 degrees, any direction. So it's, like I said, very modern, very capable, and I think it's perfect for Australia.
President Lai, final question. So Richard Marles, who's the Defence Secretary as well as the Deputy PM of Australia, said there is no country in the world with whom we have a greater strategic alignment. You know, if we were to go back 80 years, of course, they were enemies in World War II. So is it true that China is pushing these 2 middle powers together?
I think definitely that is, but also there's also the merit that Japan and Australia, they share the same value, and both of them, they are the allies of the United States, and they are the long history of the cooperation. So it's natural for them to cooperate, even to purchase the weaponry that can talk to each other. And I have to say that by selling the Japanese Mogami ship to Australia, there's also built in the communications and the operation procedure along with this. Because if you look at some of the reason, Australia demanded that why they want Japan ship, because Japan can deliver in time, faster than other countries' provisions, or whether that takes like 5 years later, but Japan can push it a little bit further and earlier. So that's why they choose Japan's products.
And why would you say that something that's been called horizontal strengthening, why is that important, the sort of spoke strengthening of relations across this region?
Because you just cannot go through the United States. Should they want to operate along with each other, they can direct do it and not rely on the United States. And this is critical in today's Indo-Pacific security environment. And especially with the United States, that seems to see some sign that they try to readjust themselves. And for the alliance to step up, for Japan and Australia to take this responsibility a little bit further, the interoperability will be very important. And that ship, and also I'll say F-35 provides that kind of the capabilities.
So it's good for the region, it's good for Taiwan.
Yes.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Tony Hu and Lai Zong, for joining Taiwan Talks. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching today. Stay safe and see you next time.